Hi there, BookTube. It's Roz, and I'm here with a quick review of this 15 Wild Decembers by Karen Powell. So, new fiction. And this, I think this was published in late September of 2023. It's a book that's kind of gone under the radar a bit, I think, until it was picked as one of the fiction shortlist for the Nero Book Awards, which gave it a little kind of oomph. And I saw Bob the Bookerer talking about that fiction shortlist and saying such nice things about this book that made me want to pick it up and read it. So, it's sort of historical fiction, I guess, but at the more literary end of that sort of thing. The title, 15 Wild Decembers, is the Bronte fans amongst you might spot that it's from a poem by Emily Bronte, and yes, that's what it is. It's a fictional, imagined kind of biography of the Bronte sisters and Branwell, I guess, but in particular taking Emily Bronte's perspective. So, it's a first-person narrative in Emily's voice. One reason that I hadn't been drawn to it is because I love the Brontes. I love all three of them, probably particularly Charlotte and Anne more than Emily, but we'll come back to that. But I'm always a bit wary of books that are based on the lives of, based on the work of favourite authors of mine. I've had a fair number of bad experiences with that sort of thing, I'll be honest. So, when I originally heard that this was coming out, I thought, oh no, that won't be for me. And it was really, watching Bob talk about it kind of convinced me, oh no, that I should pick it up. And I'm so glad that I didn't skip this book. I really, really am. So what's to like about it? Well, I felt I got a real feeling of being in the lives of the Bronte sisters reading this, quite an intimate feeling of getting inside their heads, getting inside their home, the family relationships, their development as writers, how, Charlotte and Emily and Anne came to write their poetry and their novels, their sort of intellectual development, I suppose, and their both their closeness and their differences, all of that I really felt, and I think it can be tempting for authors writing novelizations of artists' lives to go for the melodrama, to kind of include a load of, I don't know, what to me are kind of silly theories or inventions or, playing, it would be easy to write a book like this and, I don't know, throw in some, torrid relationship that Emily supposedly has, or, to make sense of why Wuthering Heights is so passionate, or, silly stuff like that. No, none of that. This is it's quite a kind of low key in a way, telling that actually manages then to be very moving, because of course, obviously there's a lot of, there's a lot of loss and death and in their lives. And, really captured that well for me. Second thing I really liked about this book was it's kind of got the style. It's kind of got hints of the real Emily's voice in the voice of Emily in the novel. Hints from her writing, from her poetry or from her, from Wuthering Heights, but it absolutely doesn't do that thing of trying to imitate it. It's not, that sort of pastiche. Some of the Jane Austen rewrites, retellings, or things about Jane Austen's life, they try and do Jane Austen, and in style. And of course, if you try and do Jane Austen, you're going to fail. If you try to do Emily Bronte, you're going to fail. She somehow manages to both make it feel like this might be Emily Bronte's voice, without falling into that trap. So it's quite elegant and very, very readable. Yeah. No, very, very easy to read without being sort of weak or basic. Yeah. Third reason to love this book, for me, is that I love Yorkshire, the county of Yorkshire in the north of England. Tilly, my daughter, lives there, so it's kind of like my home from home, as it were. And we also know that the Brontes, loved where they lived. They and Emily, perhaps above all, was home and the countryside and nature and the weather, the landscape, the rivers, the animal. All of that was really precious to Emily, and you can sense that when you read Wuthering Heights in particular. The sense of place in that book is extraordinary. She was a huge walker, and that Powell really manages to bring that into this book, to give the sense of what that meant to the sisters, including and Emily in particular, but also to give you, the reader, a similar sort of sense of place. You can tell that she has been to Haworth and she has walked the moors, she's walked the paths that, Emily and Charlotte and Anne and their sisters and Bramwell walked. She's paddled in the rivers and climbed the rocks and all of that. I've been there. I could tell it was steeped in that part of Yorkshire, this book, and so that was a real pleasure. I'd say Yorkshire is Powell's adopted country. She grew up in Kent, in the same sort of part of the world as me, actually, and has moved to Yorkshire, and that's her adopted county. And I suppose the overriding impression of this book is there's a lot of love in this book. Love for Yorkshire, love for the countryside, and love for the Brontes, love for their novels, and for Emily's poems. That's kind of what you're left with reading this book. And I have to say, by the end of it, I was really thinking I need to reread Wuthering Heights. It's probably 15 or 20 years since I last read it. I've read it a couple of times, and the last time I read it, I thought I was so struck by how different a book it was to the book that I remembered reading as a teenager that I'm not sure I fully did it justice. So I'm moved to reread Wuthering Heights, having read this, and also to revisit more of Emily Bronte's poetry. So that's what this book did for me. I would say that this is not a flashy book. Okay, it's not groundbreakingly original. It's just really lovely and well written. And, if you love Jane Eyre and Tenant of Wildfell Hall and Wuthering Heights and Villette and so on, then absolutely don't pass this by. Do read this book. Tell me if you have. Perhaps loads of you have already read it, and I just somehow missed the boat till Bob pushed me to read it.